but at least there are 2/3 of the green state. And now I can't even see a tree and all I can see is sand and rock. After a while, a group of people finally found a place where someone was smoking, but the dress of the Manchu people inside made everyone a little confused. I didn't expect these people to have returned to their original life. Then everyone went into the market of the Manchu and wanted to find out about the status of the Manchu. Soon they found that the Manchu today, even the flesh of ordinary people, contained explosive power. Some of the slightly stronger people are afraid that the power of flesh alone can be comparable to the king of Yuan. It can be seen that Manchuria has found a new way on the road of flesh. It seems that this time is the right place to hope to find the problem of flesh here. Otherwise, even if he goes through a long life again, he will not be able to do it again. The old man will tell the Manchu Tang Yuayu to go and inquire about the information. Yi Kengshuan took the rest of the people to the market. After a while, Tang Yuayu returned with some news that some of the clans in Manchuria were gone. And now the whole Manchuria is under the rule of the royal tribe. The 8 major tribes and the countless small tribes are managed separately. The closer the royal tribes to the center of the political center are, the stronger the strength of these tribes. After hearing the information that Tang Yuayu had inquired about, Yi Kengshuan had a problem. It seems that only the ruler of the royal tribe, Nan Wang, can determine whether there is a way to solve his body restriction. At the same time, in a valley in the upper world, there is a net life pool full of blood. At this moment, there is a human cultivator who was ruthlessly thrown into the blood pool and became a part of the blood in the net life pool. The operator is the chief of the reincarnation, Li Ziming. Li Ziming uses the net life pool to infinitely devour the flesh to provide the power of qi and blood to improve his cultivation. Where can he find more umbrella repair when he is suffering? A picture suddenly appeared in the net life pool. A new block has appeared in the lower world, and the people there are all full of blood. If he can refine all the mortals in this area, he will right Menu and the enemy cannot become the first in the sky. At the same time, the owner of the temple in the upper world also received a report from his subordinates that the Manchurian people in the lower world of Manchuria have reappeared among all the races. The Manchurian gold blood is the strongest, and the devourer can be compared to the poet, and the devourer can be transformed by their demon tribe. This is the time for the rise of the demon god Hall. At the same time, the owner of the Holy Jade, Yi Qinghan, also received news in the Beehive Palace of the Holy Jade that there would be great trouble in the lower world. As soon as the order to the strong to go to the lower world, all the innocent people who meet the rotten sand will be destroyed. He will never allow the lower world guarded by Yi Kengshuan to have any crisis. And at this moment, Yi Kengshuan and others in the Manchu people suddenly encountered a man with a hammer in his hand. This man is one of the 8 great historians of the Manchu. Mantao has just returned from the royal tribe. He received an order from the Man Emperor to find outsiders. I didn't expect the outsiders to be in their own tribe. I didn't think about it at random. I just picked up the heavy hammer in my hand and hit it hard against the ground. Suddenly, the ground cracked, and a force extended directly to the feet of Yi Kengshuan. Mantao opened his mouth and was angry. The outsider came out of the battle and heard that the man was one of the 8 great men of the Manchu. Yi Kengshuan was immediately interested in him. He wanted to see if the man's power could give him an unexpected surprise. There are countless big demons in the world of the Wild West. He'll have come out of the cave because the gold blood of the Manchu people in the lower world is the strongest, and the devourer can be compared to the poet for the big demons. The Manchu people can be awakened by their demons. But what they didn't expect was that when the people in the Manchu tribe saw the demons, they were not afraid of despair, but they were excited and excited. The long hair in his hand went crazy into the air. According to them, today actually met the beast tide and I can finally have a good meal. For the Manchu people who lack food and food, as long as they kill all the big demons, it's enough for them to eat for the next year. And they don't have to suffer the pain of hunger. What about the big demons, who have half the strength of the king of the beast? They look at the ordinary long hair that comes from the lower world, and they are the prey of the Manchu people. The problem is that these are still ordinary mortals. The weapons that are thrown with the strength of flesh and blood can easily kill them. I thought the Manchu world was the time for the demon to rise, but they were inexplicably destroyed. A figure appeared in the air from afar, and the source was the name of the chief of the reincarnation sect. It was also a shock to see the Manchu people who kept throwing long hair and hunting big demons. The strength of this kind of blood can kill the holy seed. No wonder the net life will show the residents here. It's 100 or even 100 of them. When he thought of a way to train the Manchu to improve his cultivation, he saw this situation and decided to get rid of it. God knows if there is a stronger existence of the Manchu. It's not fun if you don't go into the ditch and turn the boat. At the same time, one of the 8 great forces of the Manchu, Mantao, found the people of Yi Kengshuan who were wandering in the tribe. The king of the Manchu ordered to capture the outsiders. After Mantao confirmed the identity of Yi Kengshuan, he did not say much nonsense and took action. The hammer in his hand was coming to Yi Kengshuan, and the terrible force was carrying the power of the thunder god. But the next second Mantao was all stunned. Yi Kengshuan just took out 2 fingers, and easily took the heavy hammer in his hand and saw the situation, where Mantao held the fist in his left hand, and the terrible force was directly directed at the hammer. Want to use the hammer to crush the bottom of Yi Kengshuan. The sound of the bang spread around the fishing net, and only saw the bottom of Yi Kengshuan's fingers change to single hands, and easily received the force of the hammer's crushing. Seeing Yi Kengshuan perfectly intact, Mantao was stunned. The fist had used up all his strength, and when he wanted to lift the hammer in his hand, he found that no matter how hard he tried, the hammer would not move. All he could see was Yi Kengshuan's fingers directly caught in the hammer and locked the hammer shut and said, "You've done it twice, now it's my turn." He picked up the hammer and smashed it directly on the ground. Then he picked up the unwillingly loose Mantao again, and smashed it back to the ground quickly until he crushed the hammer in his hand. And Yi Kengshuan finally stopped, looking at the already helpless Mantao. Yi Kengshuan felt a little pity that the other party's physical defense was already comparable to the environment, but the empty defense had no power. I want to be a training is not qualified at all. When Yi Kengshuan asked Mantao, "How go to the palace of the Man dynasty, a figure above him saw all of this. It's obvious that the Man people are strong. But there's a more fierce character than the Man people. When the machine was about to calculate the origin of this person, he found that he was shrouded in fog and could not return to the world. Unfortunately, he sent out the soul of the treasure directly. He didn't believe it was that bad. Soon, under the loss of the treasure, Yi Kengshuen's golden voice appeared. It took 1/3 of the spiritual power to finally see the origin of Yi Kengshuen. But the treasure of the next second was instantly cracked, and the sound of the crash was directly broken. The blood of Li Ziming, who was rejected, was spurted out, and he was too hurt to heal. This man was actually Yi Kengshuen, who had been in charge of the Sky Castle for thousands of years, and he was still alive. The heart of the harmful Li Ziming did not stay. He must tell the strong in the upper world that he must not let Yi Kengshuen continue to suppress the sky in the upper world. It must be done before the other party has fully recovered and killed him in the lower world. Otherwise, the upper world will return to the era ruled by Yi Kengshuen. When Li Ziming tore up the space and left, Yi Kengshuen felt something up in the air, and his own traces were revealed in his heart. But it doesn't matter to him. The old opponent had a few more people who dared to go down the world by themselves. He didn't want to take a group of people with him, and he asked the road to the royal tribe from the mouth of Mantau. On the other hand, Li Ziming, who had successfully returned to the upper world, was still glad to be able to escape from Yi Kengshuen's eyes. But the thought of whether it was Yi Kengshuen's strength had not yet recovered. He thought of the sound of the ship from his waist and the jade pendant. The news that Yi Kengshuen was still alive and had no strength in his body spread all over the world. The owner of the temple of the god of the devil was excited and was suppressed for many years. How could he miss such a good opportunity? The body was lying towards the lower world. The holy jade of the upper world was in the palace of the sea fairy, and the owner of the holy jade, Yi Kinghan, also received the news that the man who had been dreaming of life was still alive. Yi Kinghan shed a tearful tear. He knew how could the man he loved die so easily. Thinking of Yi Kengshuen's current strength is not 100%. The strong men of the upper world will not miss this opportunity. Yi Kinghan stood up firmly, and even if the holy jade did not have his battle, the evil demons outside the jade would take this opportunity to break through the seal. And he was also there. At that time, Yi Kengshuen was in a state of deep trouble. He was not there. This time, even if the 9 provinces of the mainland were to fall, he could not stop his footsteps. The smell of urine slowly flew towards the lower world of Manchuria. At the same time, the seal of the Lord of the Jade of the Thunder suddenly cracked. How could he miss such an opportunity? At the same time, the news that Yi Kengshuen was still alive spread to the upper world. The strong who want to take this opportunity to deal with Yi Kengshuen are moving out, and Yi Kengshuen and others are walking in the desert of Manchuria. They are going to the dynasty of Manchuria to find the king of Manchuria and use the power of the king of Manchuria to help them break through the limit of their body. But this is a dragon whirlwind appearing in the air, walked the footsteps of the people, and saw the situation. Yi Kengshuen laughed and opened his mouth directly out of the way. Why hide the end of the road? Speaking, a punch kicked out the dragon whirlwind in front of a tall figure in front of the people, which is one of the 8 great forces of the Manchu, the wild man, who followed the order of the king of Manchuria to come to take your life. He was once the strongest man in the world, and he challenged the heaven to failure and low blood to rebirth. Now he has come to the Manchuria to find a way to break through the limit of his body. I didn't expect to meet a fool in the middle. This man is one of the 8 great forces of the Manchu, at the top of the Manchu. The wild man saw Yi Kengchuen's strength was good and said that as long as Yi Kengshuen was his little brother, he would beg the king of Manchuria to spare his life. Hearing this, Tang Yui laughed directly on the spot. This fool is really interesting. Even the opponent didn't figure out who it was. He directly asked the other party to be his little brother. Yi Kengshuen heard the wild man's self-righteous words and showed his sweat and salt. I'm afraid he's not a man with a bag in his head. I'm so mad I'm not going to do him a good job. I'm sorry for his strong identity. I'm sorry for his strong identity. Although the wild man is a little bit of a second rate, he's not a real fool, and how can he not hear the meaning of the people's words? The next second, disappeared in the same place, and then appeared like lightning on the top of the people. The knife in his hand was directly pointed at Yi Kengshuen, and Yi Kengshuen reacted quickly to push the heavy woman away during the fire time, and then his side body avoided the wild man's attack. And then the fist was thrown directly at the wild man's face. A punch flew the wild man out until he hit a rock and stopped. Yi Kengshuen's expression was so funny that he couldn't even catch my punch. You're so strong that you want to take me as a little brother. Go home and practice. When he heard this, the wild man stood up from the rubble and his eyes were red with anger. The attack released the strongest form of the body. The feet landed on the ground. The whole person was like a bomb, shouting to Yi Kengshuen, but at the speed that made him proud. When the wild man's knife hit Yi Kengshuen, he found that it was just an illusion of the other party. The speed of this man is so fast that he can't see clearly. How could the wild man be in his heart at this time? Yi Kengshuen appeared behind him and patted the wild man's shoulder. Then he pointed his finger at the wild man's eyebrows, and the wild man flew out of the wild man who had lost his fighting ability. Yi Kengshuen walked over and said, "Do you still want me to be your little brother now? Who gave you the courage to say such a thing?" Speaking of Yi Kengshuen, a single hand pinched a bow and arrow directly to the wild man's right leg, and dared to be disrespectful to him. Let him go back to the Manchu alive, and bring a sentence to the best is to call all the remaining 8 great forces, so that he does not waste time to solve one by one. After these, Yi Kengshuen took the heavy people to continue to the Manchu's most core area of progress. And at this moment, far away from the top of a little demon just happened to see the end of the eye. Immediately take out the transmitting talisman and report the current location of Yi Kengshuen to the shopkeeper of the demon god hall. After getting Yi Kengshuen's position, the shopkeeper was excited, and when he was about to move to the front of the blood, The space behind him suddenly cracked, and a shadow came out of it. The person who came was the owner of the fairy demon world. Xiaoji, when he saw the person, the shopkeeper was not surprised. The two had been suppressed by Yi Kangchuan for hundreds of years. Now that we know that Yi Kangchuan's strength is greatly damaged, how can we miss this opportunity to meet again? It's just that the space in the lower realm is too fragile to accommodate the two strong men at the earth level. The two have to suppress their cultivation. Otherwise, once the force exceeds the limit of the space in the lower realm, it will lead to the destruction of the thunder. Although the strength of the two can only be used for a while, they are still very confident in the fight against the heavily injured Yi Kangchuan. Just before the two went to hunt down Yi Kangchuan, a figure behind them also appeared at the same time. The man who came was the Lord of the Sacred Jade, King Muda. How could he allow his own dream man to be bullied by others? They also shouted in the direction of the two leaping. And the moment was heading towards the Manchu dynasty to rush the road of Yi Kangchuan did not know that he had been the upper world of the earth level strong male. At this moment, when everyone was passing a remote Gobi desert, Yi Kangchuan stopped everyone and said, "The group is finally here, but there are only 5 people. Who can I look down on?" 5 people from afar came out of the shadows and met Yi Kangchuan and asked, "Are you 5 going to kill, or prepare one by one?" The man is the other 5 people of the 8 great forces of the Manchu dynasty. It's just that when I heard Yi Kangchuan's question, the weakest Manchu came forward and said, "I'm enough to deal with you, the outsider. The 5 of you are all strong men with heads and faces. How could they do such a shameful thing to the group? They are one of the 8 great forces of the Manchu dynasty. Manchu, Manchurian, Manchurian, and Manchurian King, and they are all full of powerful power. 5 people do not know the outsider in front of them. Is what sacred Manchurian emperor just ordered a few people to come and meet each other if they knew that this man was Yi Kangchuan, who had sealed the Manchu with his own strength 2,000 years ago? I'm afraid the 5 people would not even have the courage to fight him. The ignorant did not say that the official attack of the Manchu only saw the Manchu rising and lifting his legs towards Yi Kangchuan. The sword hit Yi Kangchuan just lifted his hand and easily took the Manchu's powerful blow. The power of the anti-war was passed on to the Manchu, and the Manchu was shocked to see this situation. This man is so strong. The power of the anti-war in this corner almost broke his leg. I didn't want to lift my legs again and attack Yi Kangchuan. I felt the power of the Manchu's legs. Yi Kangchuan praised it. But the speed of the power was much worse. Even his corner of the clothes can't touch such an opponent. Is not too boring. I thought that Yi Kangchuan was determined to strike, and the shadow of his body was as fast as lightning, and he came to Manwu in an instant. I haven't waited for the other party to react, and slapped Manwu's face directly. The whole Manwu flew out of the sky, and Yi Kangchuan did not stop his legs and pushed hard. After catching Manwu's figure, he lifted his legs and Manwu suddenly spat out a bloodbath, and the whole man was heavily smashed to the ground. The battle had just begun, and it ended like this. I couldn't help but swallow my saliva. When I looked at Manwu from a distance, this man is too strong. But in love with the order of the Manchurian emperor, Manwu had to attack him with his head. As one of the 8 great forces of the Manchu, the giant stone next to Manwu's hand exploded in an instant. Then the countless stones floated up and quickly attacked Yi Kangchuan. When he saw this, Yi Kangchuan was a little surprised. He didn't expect that this man had no spiritual power and could also use this move. It's a little bit like the swordplay of the Zhu family, which is to attack objects with the power of the body. In the story, Yi Kangchuan used a foot to use the same method of Ji to control the surrounding stone blocks, and went to the attack of Manwu. The stone blocks in the sky just came out of the moment and made a lot of noise. Manwu was stunned when he saw this. He didn't expect that the other party just took a look. When Yi Kangchuan felt the power of this move, he was disappointed that the power was too scattered and the power was not enough. It's a little bit of a mess. This is a shadow that appears behind him without a sound. The dagger in his hand is directly pointed at Yi Kangchuan's back, but the scene of a sword in his imagination did not occur. Seeing this, the man quickly retreated and opened the distance. This man was the best assassin among the 5. The man saw the broken dagger in his hand. This is the holy soldier given to him by the man Wen. He can't even break the defense of the other party. When he saw this scene from a distance, he was happy to speak. Even the sword can't break my husband's defense. You want to sneak attack with your broken weapon? Are you here to make fun of Yi Kangchuan? Turn around and look at the failure of the sneak attack. Even he didn't find the murderous intent and whereabouts of the shadow. It can be seen that the other party is still a little bit of a surprise in terms of concealment. It's a pity that the ability to attack is too weak. While speaking, he grabbed the head of the shadow and threw it away. At the same time, a punch went far away and was still in the blind of the god. In an instant, the 2 strong men lost their ability to fight and solve the 3 strong men of the main clan. Yi Kangchuan looked at the remaining 2 who had not yet started. The 2 of them were completely uninterested in fighting. The 3rd-ranked man Kang had to come out and take the initiative to fight. When he started, he used all his strength to meet Yi Kangchuan. I felt the power of man Kang's attack. Yi Kangchuan showed his exciting god. He was the 3rd strongest man in the history of the 8 great powers. The combat power was the combination of the first 3. He has tried his best to hide his strength as far as possible. The 2 strong men at the earth level are too cowardly. They have been fighting for so long that the other party dare not show up. It turns out that Yi Kangchuan has long been found to have the strong men of the upper world hiding in the dark to observe him. And the 8 great powers to fight is deliberately weak. It's to draw out the people who are hiding in the dark. Now he's not fully recovered yet. If he doesn't take the opportunity to get rid of a couple of enemies, he'll wait until all the strong men in the upper world are gathered. It's a big trouble for him now. However, Yi Kangchuan, who was watching the fight with him, dared to be distracted at this time. It was a disgrace to him. The attack on his hand became more fierce. At this moment, The two people who are hiding in the dark observing Zhang Huang and Xiaoji are watching Yi Kangxuan, who is fighting with Man Kang. And even a man who has only the God Emperor's war power cannot be solved. Finally, it is confirmed that Yi Kangxuan's strength is really 1 in 100. Otherwise, how could this kind of bad color have not ended the battle until now? The reason why the two strong men of the Earth level have not taken action is because they find that the Man people are a little different. The Manzhou in my memory was a place where only the body was not cultivated and the spirit was not cultivated. In the era of Xiaoji's ascension to the upper world, only the spiritual cultivation could rely on his own cultivation to break the world. Manzhou never had a man who could fly to the upper world because he had no spiritual power. At that time, Manzhou was most of the cultivation was not worth it. I did not expect that the Man people of this manny place could have such power by relying on their physical strength. And according to Zhan Huang's memory, when Yi Kangxuan flew to the upper world 2,000 years ago, he simply relied on his physical strength to suppress the whole upper world. This shows that Yi Kangxuan and Manzhou are afraid of having some kind of relationship. The two of them plan to continue to observe the desire to collect the power of the Fish King before they have cleared Manzhou. And at this point, the Man Kang below has been in the lower wind after the constant firefight with Yi Kangxuan. Has begun to understand the man's soul sword that is still singing in the mouth in the distance. Throw the wine gourd in your hand into the air, and you will see the wine in the gourd floating out and the spirit power in the wine. Under the guidance of the man's soul begins to coalesce. As the man Huang pointed out, a quick attack was directed at Yi Kangxuan, who was fighting. Yi Kangxuan was healthy and avoided the attack. The Man Kang's sword grabbed the opportunity to quickly kick out, but it was successfully avoided by Yi Kangxuan. Man Kang's punch hit the ground heavily, and in this situation, Man Kang, who had just been pressed down, showed a smile. In the history of the 8 great attacks, he can only be in the top 3, but what he is best at is the ability to contain the cooperation. The punch he just made was the one he deliberately hit the ground. Yi Kangxuan only reacted to the fact that the position he was standing behind was a stone mountain, and the attack of the man's soul had appeared behind him. Before he could react, the stone mountain was instantly blown up by the man's soul. In cooperation with the force of the punch that Man Kang had just left, the gravity of the whole stone mountain was all on Yi Kangxuan. The smoke of the next generation of guests dispersed, and Yi Kangxuan walked out of the broken stone in a row, and at the same time took the power of the two people and almost broke his body defense. It felt like it was almost the same. Yi Kangxuan tore off the broken top and opened his mouth. It was time to end this prop, warm up and start over. Speaking of seeing, Yi Kangxuan's figure suddenly disappeared in the original place, not waiting for Man Kang to react. Yi Kangxuan had come behind him. A fist of Man Kang's face was thrown out of the door, and Man Kang was thrown out of the door without any resistance, but a fist lost his combat ability. Yi Kangxuan looked far away, and the figure of man's soul disappeared again and appeared directly behind the man's soul. In the next second, I don't know when the nine-tailed fox, who hasn't yet reacted to the man's soul, has appeared in Yi Kangxuan's hands, and the man's soul is in a hurry to the point where he has no idea. The man's soul, who was playing with him, was angry and came to Yi Kangxuan, but he couldn't even find the other party's figure. For these man strongmen, Yi Kangxuan did not plan to kill. It seems that this is to find a competitor who can compete with the 5-man strong bodies are very good and have a very good appetite for Yi Kangxuan. So I wanted to call them to follow me. And this is a shadow coming from afar, and you're a little bit too much. Even the 5 yellows of the tribe want to take the man, who is the head of the 8 great forces, Manly, the strongest man except the man Huang. But what Yi Kangxuan did not expect was that Manly was not in a hurry to fight him. It's the sky that looks far away and opens the mouth to deal with you before you deal with the others. You're kind of a man of our man's tribe, and it's not your turn to want the mantis to make up for the yellow sparrow. And then say a stone was thrown into the air, and it was the position of Zhang Huang and Xiaoji, the 2 great earth and strong men from the upper world. Did not expect the earthen pillars of the lower world to be able to see their whereabouts at a glance, so they did not hide directly to show the true body. Looking at the man who had suppressed the upper world for thousands of years, the owner of the Hall of the Demon God Zhan Huang said that the existence of the past sky high hand no one can resist is not so hard to deal with some earthen pillars. The former enemy of the demon world, the owner of the world, Xiaoji, did not say anything and sent out the soldiers in his hand as long as he could kill Yi Kangxuan. He doesn't care about the so-called advantage of taking advantage of others. He only knows that if he doesn't take advantage of Yi Kangxuan's strength to recover, he will kill him in the underworld of the man Huang. Soon the upper world will be ruled by this man, facing the murder of 2 great earth and strong men. Yi Kangxuan looked calm and fearless, even if his strength is really not 100%. It is not the 2 jumping little ugly in front of him that can bully him. When he was about to hit the defeated soldiers, who had been in the past, Manly, who was watching the show, couldn't help but say, "It's not fair to have to, so why don't you teach me one?" I'm still very interested in the strength of the upper world. Yi Kangxuan accepted Manly's goodwill, and the 2 joined forces to deal with the 2 strong men in the upper world. Zhan Huang saw the other party's alliance, with Xiaoji on the one hand, and Xiaoji had the soldiers to deal with the strong Yi Kangxuan, who didn't know the man's land after the sky was high, and he gave it to him to solve it. The 4 of them were in a big battle, and Zhan Huang was the owner of the temple. Its body is the golden pool of the big shed group speed, and body is also its strength. The earth and strong men in the lower world will be suppressed by the heaven road. Although the strength can only play out a city, it is not Manly who can only practice the body of Manju than you. When a handful of horse showed the dazzling god color, the speed of the yellow speed was so fast that it was difficult to find the price, and he could only try to dodge with his body. And the yellow horse, which has 9 heads, also has the ability to attack. On the other hand, Xiaoji, who was on the knight, took out all his strength as soon as he took action. The attack was also extremely tricky. If Yi Kangxuan does not choose to avoid this attack, it will be a wave of Tangyue and others who are watching from afar. Yi Kangxuan had to hold his fist tight and choose to hardly carry a fist to throw out the terrible power directly. What's up? The second hit the shoulder of the Xiaoji strike was instantly broken by Yi Kangxuan, but it was also broken by the attack of Xiaoji, the strongmen of the upper world. are not Man Wang the Dolly can compare with you, although most of the force is suppressed by the Having Road. The application of the skill is more than a handful. The force is perfectly concentrated to a point, and easily breaks through his defense in order to avoid the heavy rain behind the next battle. Yi Kangxuan flashed and played the speed to the extreme. Xiaoji did not react and was directly held by him and brought to the other side of the battle. Feel the manly of Yi Kangxuan's body alone can break his own earth area. Xiaoji released the hidden behind the soldiers. It turned out that half of the spiritual power had been instilled into this soldier long before the next season. I just want to do it when Yi Kangxuan is not supported. In terms of the killing power of the soldiers at this moment, the broken void is no longer a joke, let alone the heavy injury area of Yi Kangxuan. The soldiers in his hands instantly show the terrible power that made Yi Kangxuan have to be paralyzed. But for Yi Kangxuan, he has never experienced any battle in his life. He went to shoot at Xiaoji in a decisive change of direction, in front of absolute power. All means are vain. Yi Kangxuan continuously hit countless powerful punches to break the opponent's attack. The shadow of the sky is 7 steps forward. The second is a thin body, a hand holding the ground, and the 2 shadows are like lightning in the desert. After a moment, Xiaoji found that even under the support of the ground troops, he had fallen into the lower wind. It is hard to imagine how strong Yi Kangxuan was before the festival. It takes decades to build up a handful of the power of the source. Once the power of the source is exhausted, it means that the death of the show is over. But at this moment, Xiaoji can't care about that much. The sickle in his hand quickly cut out a terrible blade shadow to kill Yi Kangxuan. I can feel the power of this attack. And Yi Kangxuan dare not resist it. He quickly dodged it with the flexibility of his body. But soon Yi Kangxuan found that Xiaoji's attack was strong. But the damage it could cause under the suppression of the Sky Road was not 100%. I didn't think that Yi Kangxuan would be so decisive, that he would attack again after receiving several attacks in a row, and find a chance to hit Xiaoji's fault. The sound of a bang, Xiaoji flew out of the mountain, and finally stopped after hitting the trees and the mountain peaks. Seeing Xiaoji defeated far away and the battle with Manly, Zhang Huang was shocked and did not hesitate to use the card to defeat Manly. Tang Yueyu, who looked like she was close to him, and others took advantage of Yi Kangxuan's lack of rescue and rushed to kill the heavy girl. I want to take you down and force Yi Kangxuan to surrender. And see Yi Kangxuan's anger fly quickly in the direction of the heavy girl. Zhan Huang, you have to move them. I'll make you fly to hell. Xiaoji showed an evil smile and spoke to Yi Kangxuan. Your biggest weakness now is that you have someone you care about. The sickle in his hand quickly cut out Yi Kangxuan, who wanted to go to the rescue, and stopped him. Yi Kangxuan could only watch Zhan Huang kill the heavy girl, and watch Zhan Huang's fist go to Tang Yueyu. A big hand suddenly appeared and stopped Zhan Huang. The man shouted coldly and mocked him. Is this the strong man of the upper world? I can't help but be angry when I see people ruining their own good deeds. Damn it, it's Manchukuo's land again. One day I'm going to kill you, Manchukuo. When I hear that, I'm going to respond with a face full of thanks. Let me ask my fist if it agrees. The man is the king of the Manchu who has the power to unify the Manchu tribes. The great and powerful man of the upper world still uses the means of the lower 3 cases just to deal with the world's strongest man, who wants to threaten the other woman to force her to surrender. The crisis supported the Manchu king's true self. The demon god Dian Zhan Huang forced to retreat for the Manchu. The Manchu are the most despicable villains, and Yi Kangxuan is at least one of the Manchu. How could the Manchu tolerate this kind of thing happening on their own land? Watching Tang Yueyu and others being saved by the Manchu, Yi Kangxuan put down his heart to hold his fist and express his gratitude. But these are just a matter of getting by for the Manchu. His body has already reached the limit of being able to break through and has been hoping to have an opponent who has the same strong body. And Yi Kangxuan is just his best choice. How could he let Yi Kangxuan die? The king of the Manchu was so angry that he went straight to the Manchu palace. Ning Ning could have solved Yi Kangxuan's strong enemy, but suddenly a Manchu king was killed, which made the king of the Manchu more aggressive. When the Manchu and the king of the Manchu were at a loss, Yi Kangxuan turned to Xiaoji from afar. Xiaoji proposed to let Zhan Huang to fight against Tang Yueyu and other women. This has touched the evil spirit of Yi Kangxuan, so the devil desires to kill Xiaoji today. Xiaoji did not care that Yi Kangxuan was determined to kill himself. Yi Kangxuan was defeated by a failure of his own strength. He wanted to kill this powerful man of the earth. It's a dream. I thought I was the first man in the world. But soon Xiaoji was dumbfounded and the sword of the ground troops could not even touch the figure of Yi Kangxuan. It was only when Yi Kangxuan appeared behind Xiaoji that the power of the right fist was several times stronger than that of the previous battle. He was heavily hit on the head of Xiaoji, and the whole Xiaoji flew out of the way. It turns out that Yi Kangxuan has been keeping his strength. The enemies of the upper world are far more than the 2 in front of him. If you don't say anything else, you say that the second Thunder Demon Lord in the sky ranking has not appeared yet. How could he not hide his strength against these 2 people? But at this moment, Yi Kangxuan is too lazy to keep anything. He didn't want to fall into the past passive again. He thought of the fist of Yi Kangxuan and he was crazy about Xiaoji. He kept hitting him and Xiaoji didn't even have a place to fight back. After a moment, Xiaoji was seriously injured and a blood spurt was stepped on by Yi Kangxuan with a heavy foot. What surprised Yi Kangxuan was that Xiaoji's body was really hard enough to keep hitting him so hard, but it's not a problem for him. Yi Kangshuan's eyes were red and his whole body was gathered on the fist. If this punch is hit, Xiaoji will not die and will be discharged. Seeing this situation, Xiaoji is in a hurry to call Zhang Huang to help him. He only needs to help him block this blow. He can force a breakthrough in the suppression of the way of the sky to improve his cultivation and fight back.